Hello, so this is Brendan Boland with Urban Arts Partnership. I'm here to talk a little bit about the lesson plan component of the new RAD for the 2015-2016 school year. The expectation is that TAs will be filling one of these out for each lesson that they teach, and I'm just going to take you through this and kind of explain it a little bit. So up here, this is where you would write your name. You're the teaching artist, co-teacher. Right underneath that we have project number, session number, the date that the lesson is taking place, the aim or the objective for the class would go here. Any vocabulary that you're covering during the lesson you would write in here, and then a list of any materials that you need in order to facilitate the lesson. If we move a little bit further down, we find the Urban Arts methodology: experience, study, create, refine, present, and reflect. And we're asking TAs to plan their lessons around this methodology because it works incredibly well. So we have a section for time to fill in how long each section of the lesson will take to facilitate, and then also to help with planning we have a section for who is facilitating it. So after you do all your initial planning with your co-teacher, you can break down who is facilitating what section of the lesson. And then we're asking for a brief description of what is actually going to be facilitated. So here I've written in an example. So this class, students are going to be able to identify and create symmetrical patterns. The vocabulary is rotational symmetry, diagonal symmetry, probably other types of symmetry. But the way that they're going to do this in the lesson is they will experience, through a visual inquiry process, the mandalas created by Carl Jung from his Red Book. So they will be looking at those and deconstructing them. This is all that I need to write to describe that. After that, the classroom teacher will facilitate the next area of study, which involves reading an excerpt from Carl Jung's autobiography about mandalas. Again, this is all that I need to write. I'm sure I will have more thoughts than this in my head about what's happening in each one of these sections, but it can be very, very brief for the sake of planning and filling out this section of the RAD. So create. This is going to take 15 minutes, facilitated by me, probably the co-teacher as well. But the create section is the main activity of the class. So students will begin creating symmetrical outlines for their own mandalas. There's probably a lot more instruction involved here, but in terms of this document, we just need a brief description of what are students doing, what's happening. If we move down a little bit further, we can see that there is nothing filled in for refine. The reason for this is not because refining isn't important, but because all of these steps might not exist in every single class. And so there might be moments or classes where all you're doing is presenting and reflecting, and that's fine. So you're filling in whatever applies to your lesson. And here, students will not be refining their work yet, so I put a little NA, so that's clear to my program manager. And then present, students will share their mandala outlines and receive, my spelling, receive some feedback. Received? What is this? Insane. Anyway, students will share their mandala outlines and receive some feedback from their peers, and then for reflection, I'm going to take them through a rose and thorn activity. I know what this means, and that's all that matters. If you know what rose and thorn means, that's great, but it's a style of reflection. So whatever kind of reflection you're taking your students through, you would just write a brief description so we know that that's happening. And then down here we have the daily reflection area, which is where you can write in any successes. So every student completed an outline. It could be a success with an individual student. It could be something that the classroom teacher said, but something that went well, a success from the lesson. And then challenges can be anything that was a challenge. So fire alarms go off and sometimes disrupt lessons, so you weren't able to get all the way through your process. Or a particular student is having a really difficult time with the classroom teacher. It's a difficult relationship that sometimes undermines the lesson. Or the classroom teacher was on the phone the whole time, the smartboard didn't work. But these are all things that can be challenges to us facilitating or completing the class that we had planned. This is important to communicate these things with your program manager, so please, if there are challenges that keep coming up, make sure that you're documenting them here so that we can see them and address them as quickly as possible. And the next steps are what's going to happen for the next class, what adjustments need to be made, possibly based on challenges, in order to keep students on track with your curriculum outline. And down here, there will be more professional development around the Danielson framework for those of you who are not familiar with it. But this is basically a checklist to monitor and make sure that we're hitting as many of these components from the third domain of the Danielson framework as possible. It's pretty straightforward stuff. Communicating with students, using questions and discussion, so inquiry-based learning, engaging students in learning, and using assessment and instruction, demonstrating flexibility and responsiveness. I'm not going to go into too much detail with that here because I don't think it's as useful as if we have a more in-depth professional development process with it, but know that it's here. If you have any questions, please reach out to your program managers, or you can reach out to me. I'm happy to answer them as best as I can, and good luck. Have a wonderful year.